So, hi everybody, my name's Eva and I'm hosting this call today. Our guest is Steve McKibbin, who's a Merseyrail train driver. Just a quick thing before we start, if anybody wants to get in touch with Steve, for any advice you can email info@thrive-cic.co.uk, and that website link is always in our YouTube bio too if you can't find it. So without further ado, Steve, you can take it away.
Thanks very much, Eva. Thanks for inviting me along today to have a little bit of a ramble and a chat about who I am, what I do, and how I've got here. So my name obviously is Steve. I'm a driver, as Eva's pointed out, at Merseyrail, train driver at Merseyrail. I've been with the company for about 8 years now, in a couple of different roles, and I'm 43 years old. So I mean, I used to think that was really old when I was younger, but now I'm 43 myself. I don't see it as that old, but obviously I am getting on a bit now. I'm originally, I'm from what's termed, I think, so other people call it a posh part of Liverpool. I grew up in McGull, and that's where I live now. And actually, it's something. When I think about my childhood, that when I think back to it now, and I listen to other people who've done these type of talks before, I'm a little bit embarrassed about, really, not embarrassed about where I come from, but I think one of the things that happened with me when I was younger, I had quite, not a privileged upbringing, but for the era that grew up, late 70s, early 80s, Liverpool obviously was quite a deprived area, but obviously I was in quite an affluent part of the city, and I think I had a lot more opportunities that were presented to me than a lot of people who actually I work with now or I'm friends with now when they were younger, and unfortunately I didn't really take any of them opportunities. I had a stable family life. I lived with my mum and dad, my brother. And I went to a good school, and like you say, because of that, I had good opportunities to think about what I wanted to do when I was older and take school seriously. But unfortunately, that wasn't the route that I decided to take. I was too busy having fun. I was a bit of a lad. I like to go out and be with my mates more than I like to concentrate on my schoolwork. And as a result, I kind of floated through school. Didn't really achieve anything. Whereas I think, looking back now, if I had applied myself, I probably would have been in a different situation to what I am now anyway. So I left school I got GCSEs, but this pretty much sums up my school career, if you like. I got GCSEs, which grades were fairly good. I could have done A-levels, but I chose not to. I did the BTEC because I thought it was an easier option. I thought it'd be easier. And that was the only motivation. It wasn't anything I was particularly interested in or wanted to do. It just thought, oh, it'll be easier. And, I'll get a qualification at the end of it. I didn't even get that qualification after a 2-year course. After about 18 months, I dropped out. And all I was interested in round about then was going out with my mates, as I say, and having a good time. So I managed to find a job, an office job. My first job was in the civil service. I was just an admin assistant, and I was quite happy with that because I worked Monday to Friday. The hours were quite flexible, that you work Monday to Friday, and then I had my money for the weekends to go out with my mates and do what I wanted to do. Again, I was never really driven, and I think, especially when I was younger, I floated along, and perhaps I've listened to other people, as I say, and the challenges they faced, it made them more determined people. I think because I'd never faced any of them challenges, I kind of just drifted through life and floated along and was quite happy doing what I was doing. And I was at the civil service. I moved up the ladder, not really because I applied myself or anything, just because of the length of time that I was there. I was there for about 7 or 8 years. And in that time, purely I think because I did have some people skills and I'm a people person, I like, interacting with people, and I like to think I'm quite good at it, quite friendly, and get on with people. Bit of a problem solver as well. So I was able to progress to like a lower level management role in the civil service. I then met my wife, as she is now, or my girlfriend at the time, obviously. And only because of her really pushing me along a little bit, saying, you know, oh, well, why don't you go for this job and why don't you go for that job and stuff like that. I ended up thinking, well, actually, yeah, I could probably do with earning a bit more money. And I ended up going to work, taking the little bit of management experience that I had and going to work for a charity called Victim Support. We work quite closely with the police. And again, I'll be totally honest with you, it wasn't really about the job. It was more about the money. And I just thought, well, it's a better job, it's better money. I'll go and do that. And then I went there and again, kind of made me way up the ladder there with the experience that I got. And again, I was there for about 7 years. I got a bit stressful towards the end. And I think what prompted me, again, in my apathy, if you like, what prompted me to perhaps start looking for something else was I could see the writing on the wall with the way things were going. There was a bit of a recession and there was potentially going to be redundancies. And by this point, I've got 3 kids now. I had a couple of kids at the time. And then obviously you've got to grow up a little bit. And I started to think, oh, this could get a bit serious if I'm out of work and my wife's working, but I'm not. And, you know, the impact that it'd have on the family. So again, I wasn't, again, because at that point I wasn't a particularly driven person. I was saying I was looking, but I wasn't really actively looking for another job. And I kind of stumbled, if you like, into the railway industry. But the reason it happened really was my father-in-law's an electrician, and I get on really well with him. And I'd done a little bit of labouring for him at weekends when he needed help. And I was amazed when I first went to work with him. Obviously, I'd known him for years anyway, but when I first went to work with him, he loved getting up for work in the morning. He loved his job. He absolutely loved what he did. He's still working now at nearly 70 years of age because he just loves the work. It's not that he needs the money, he just loves doing what he does. And I remember coming home to my wife and saying, I'm dead jealous of your dad. And she was like, oh, what? Because of his money? And I was like, well, not to do with his money, but more about he loves his job. He gets up in the morning. Imagine having that. Imagine being in a position where you get up every day and you actually look forward to going to work. And it was kind of an aspiration that I had, but I thought I'll never really get there. And then reality hits as well. And obviously, because the situation with the job I was in, I was looking at potentially redundancies and stuff like that. It made me grow up, as I say, and change my outlook. And I was going into my 30s, or I was in my early 30s, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm in a job, it's a bit dead end, it might even end. And I've got nothing behind me. I've got no real qualifications. I'm not a professional, I've not got a career, I've not got a career path. And it was a bit of a wake-up call for me, really, and made me think, oh God, where am I at? What have I achieved, and where am I going? So again, I got fortunate in that my friend, a lad who I grew up with, spent a lot of time with when we were kids, and then obviously as we've grown up together, he'd gone and worked for. He'd got a job with Merseyrail as a train guard. It was. Just got chatting to him and he said about how good the job was. And again, the initial attraction was the money with it. But he talked about the actual job itself and how much he enjoyed it and interacting with people and what the job actually involved in the railway. And he mentioned it at the time, but I didn't really, again, at that point, I wasn't really thinking about long-term career. It was more the immediate thing of I needed a fairly decent job because I've got a young family. So the opportunity came, we said, basically, when the opportunity comes up in the recruitment guards, I'll let you know. So he let me know and I applied. Got nowhere the first time because it is quite highly sought after to get onto the railway. And I think there was thousands applied. I didn't get anywhere with it. It came around 6 months later. I was kind of a bit disheartened about it, but again, with someone with a bit of a hand on my back, shoving me along, saying, come on, have a go. You never know. I had another go and I actually got an opportunity, got the interview, went through the interview process, recruitment day, and got the job as a guard. Now, what that involved when you off the streets, as they call it, into the railway, you do a school basically. So it was going back to school, if you like. So it kind of pricked my interest because I thought, well, actually, this is an opportunity to do something and excel in something that I just haven't done before. So when I found out, obviously, about the job that involved the school, because there's a load of rules and regulations with the railway and safety, and obviously dealing with the public, and obviously the network that we're covering is electrified, and the safety aspect of that. There's loads of rules and regulations about what you can and can't do, and obviously the safety of people boarding and alighting off trains and stuff. And obviously as the guard, you're in control of the doors. So when I attended the school, it was a 12-week school, and I'm not ashamed to say I put my heart and soul into it. I really, really put everything into it, 100%. And we used to do each week to be an exam, and you build up for this exam each week, and you had to pass that exam to keep progressing to the end of the 12 weeks before you pass out as a fully qualified guard. So through the process, again, without blowing my own trumpet, I was top marks, probably top of the class, and really got stuck into it. And I enjoyed it, which surprised me, because going back into that environment of learning, it was not something I was really enjoyed before, but I found when I applied myself and gave myself, the second opportunity that presents itself, if you like, I really, really enjoyed it. So anyway, I get to the end of the guard school, and I was just made up, as I say, that I was going to be doing this job. It was they used to call it, I know there's no such thing anymore, but they used to call it a job for life when you got on the railway, because obviously there'll always be a railway, and there'll always be a need for a railway and stuff like that. So I had job security. It looked like a fairly decent job. And then one of the things that, again, made me think about my career and moving forward more than I'd probably done before, even though my mate had mentioned it to me, was at the end of when you do your final assessment, and the guy who taught us, who'd taken the school, he said, some really nice things, actually. You've done really well. You're going to be a credit to the organisation. I can see you've really applied yourself. And he said, you're going to be good at your job, and it's a great job. But then he said to me at the end of it, but what you need to be thinking about is, as good as it is, and as good a job as it is, there's a better job within the company, whether that be going down the management route or whether that be going train driving. He said, and if you apply yourself in the way that you have since I've known you on this 12 weeks, he said, you'll have no problem. You'll really do well within the organisation, and it's a massive opportunity for you. And again, it's that thing, I think, with me, sometimes I need other people to tell me what's there, what's right there in front of me. I can't see the forest with the trees maybe sometimes, and it made me think, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I'd like to. Obviously, I want to better myself. So do you know what? I'm just going to keep working as hard as what I can. And then there was, so basically I got the job, and I worked really hard, and I just did my job basically as you're supposed to do it. And then again, I think it's that thing of sometimes if you just do your job and you do your job to the best of your abilities, things will go your way. In as much as it was quite, it felt an insignificant event at the time, but when I was a guard, one of my journeys, one evening, there was a lady, and she'd been to Southport, and she had 2 kids with her, and they'd been to the Southport flower show. Obviously, they had like a load of flowers, so, and I knew it had been on at the time. So she's on my train. We're heading from Southport into Liverpool, and there was a group of kids, young kids on the train. They weren't doing anything in particular. They were just being rowdy and a bit noisy and stuff. They weren't, obviously causing problems, but I could see that this lady and the kids were a little bit nervous. So I didn't think anything of it. Obviously, as I have kids myself, I went over and sat down, just got chatting to her, tried to put the kids at ease. And then once I'd done that, just walked up to the group of kids who were making a bit of noise on the train and said, could you do us a favour, just keep the noise down? And, there's a couple of people who are a little bit nervous and stuff. So to be fair to the kids, they did. And I went back, sat with the woman, spent the rest of the journey with her in between operating the doors, chatting to her. And I didn't think anything of it. She just thanked me, and she got off. I think it was Seaforth, somewhere like that. She got off. Didn't think anything of it. And then a few days later, I was in Southport, and where the depot is, and I went into a shop. I won't mention the name of it for advertising reasons, but went to a shop to buy a butty. And the lady behind the counter, I had my name badge on, and said I was a guard, obviously. And as she served me, she said, "Oh, are you the Steve?" And I was like, "What do you mean, the Steve?" And she said, "Oh, no." She said, "All it was," she said, "I seen in the local paper today, someone had been really complimentary about a guard called Steve on the network." And immediately I just said, "Oh, no, it won't be me." And I said, what was it? What had he done? And she explained about this lady with the kids and a bit nervous. And I said, oh yeah, that was me. And I didn't think not of it, but just give me a bit of a boost. I thought, oh, that's great. But then by the time I got back to my depot where I worked at Kirkdale, the managers were waiting for me. And apparently what happened, this lady had written in to everyone she could, basically. The company, the Liverpool Echo, the Metro, all different media outlets, to say about what a great job I'd done. And again, I was just doing my job. But because of that incident and me just doing my job, or to the best of my ability, it elevated my status, if you like, within the company. I think as a result of that, if it was well thought of before, it was even more well thought of. So people were aware of who I was, which again then helped me quite rapidly progress to the driving role, which I've been in now for about 4 years. So that's really what I'm here to talk about as much as myself, is the role of a driver. So as a guard with Merseyrail, you are, it's one of the only train operating companies, in fact, I think it's the only one now in the country, where they recruit from within for the driver's role. Well, when I say recruit from within, they recruit from the guards grade exclusively for the driver's role. Other train operating companies around the country will take people off the streets, as we call it, whether they be university graduates or anyone from any walk of life, because it is a very specific role, or you've got to be a specific type of person. And as much as to actually become a train driver, obviously did the interview and everything through Merseyrail, and then they put you forward for aptitude tests, and it's known as the OPC. And you only get 2 opportunities to do these tests before you become a driver. Now, you get two chances at it. Basically, if you have these 2 chances at the aptitude test and you fail on something, then that's it. You can't. You're not going to be not fit to, but you're not the right type of person to be a train driver. So it's a lot to do with concentration, being able to follow rules and regulations strictly, not moving from rules and regulations, not thinking really. It sounds daft, but not doing something without the rules and regulations that back you up, because you could potentially, without meaning to even at times, put someone at risk or cause a massive incident. So the process with that was, I'd gone through the Merseyrail recruitment. They sent me for the OPC, which was a day doing these tests, which was quite stressful. But once I'd got through that and managed to pass that, it was then another school, if you like. So like the guard school previously, it was a driver school, again, run in-house by Merseyrail, because you're going to be one of their drivers driving one of their types of trains. And that was, it can be anywhere between 6 and 8 months it takes from when you walk first day in the classroom to when you pass out as a qualified driver. And the classroom takes about, again, 12 weeks of intense rules and regulations, learning about the units, learning about the trains, how they work, how you control them, all the rules and regulations that are in place for you to make sure you're keeping people safe while they're traveling on your train and stuff like that. So you've got all the theory work, if you like, for the first 12 weeks. And then after that, you do for a minimum of 44 turns actually driving the train. So 44 turns, but for anyone outside of the industry, is 44 days, if you like, 44 occasions where you've been in to drive the trains, basically. You do that with another driver, a leader driver with you, who basically, when you get in that train the first time, they're just telling you, basically, you're like a robot. You're doing what they tell you to do, following their instruction. And then over that 44 turns, there's a natural progression from them telling you what to do to you get to the point where you just know what to do. And they're just there as a backup in case there's something that comes up that you're unsure about or anything like that. To be a train driver, I think I've learned about myself as I've got older. I don't know whether I suffer with OCD, but I am a little bit OCD of that, obsessive compulsive about things, and I work really well in a structured environment. I like being told what to do rather than have to think for myself a lot of the time. So because of the rules and regulations that are in place, I think the role really suits me as an individual. And if you're that type of person who likes structure and likes to follow guidelines and be aware of them and put them into practice, then it's the type of role that you would thrive in, I think. Also, it's shift work, which again suits my lifestyle. Obviously, my wife, and I've got 3 kids, so I'll have a week of early turns and then a week of late turns. So I get that variety. So I'm either taking the kids to school in the morning when I'm on the late, or I'm picking them up from school in the evening when I'm on the earlies the next week. So it gives you that variety as well. Again, I think if I was a bit younger, maybe you might not like working the late as much because you wouldn't get out as much. And the other thing is as well, there's a lot of weekend work involved as well. So I'm at the age now where my weekends I don't really do anything other than try and keep kids entertained. So again, if a younger person might struggle with, and that's the same for the guards role as well, and most roles within the railway industry, if you like, there's a lot of weekend work. So anyone who is one of them people who hates working the weekends and can't get their heads around it, it's probably not for them. But if that's not something that bothers you, then definitely the railway is a good place to work. I mean, obviously, I've gone down the driving route within the railway industry, and it's a role that suits me, I think. But there's loads of opportunities to do loads of different things in the railway. As I say, there's the guards role, there's station staff, there's ticket inspectors, there's the engineers or fitters, as we call them, who actually look after the fleet and look after the trains. There's track workers, network rail, who look after the infrastructure that we drive the trains on. So, and again, if you're someone like me who likes the idea of, and especially if you've got a family, that thing, and I know, especially post-pandemic world where a lot of industries, I don't think there's anything that won't be affected by it, but the railway is something that I think will always be needed, and it does offer that. What I love about it offers that bit of security that, as much as I love the job in itself, hopefully, fingers crossed, there's always going to be a job there for me as well, as long as I do what I'm supposed to do and behave myself. Have you got any questions you want to ask either?
Yeah, so have you is that like summarised your job then?
Yeah, I mean, the role itself, and actually doing the job, it's if you're someone who doesn't mind your own company as well. I mean, that's what I struggled with initially when I was a guard. Like I say, I'm a people person at heart, and that suited me down to the ground. I used to love interacting with people and chatting to people as I was doing my job. So it was a bit of a culture shock then to be just put in the front of this train, and you don't speak to anyone. You can't have your phone switched on, obviously, for obvious reasons. You don't speak to anyone other than the signaller if something goes wrong or you need to speak to them about an incident or whatever. So it did take a bit of getting used to that working in solitude so much, but you do have your train crew. So every train that I'm driving, there's also a guard on the back of it. So you get that little bit of interaction and teamwork when you with that person on that job, and it's a different person every day. So you're still getting that variety of interacting with people. And also at the depot, when you're booking on, or when you just before you leave work, or when you're on your lunch or your scoff, as they call it on the railway, you get that opportunity to interact with people then, and so you're not completely in solitude, but it is something that, if you are driving the train, basically you are there, you're in this driving cab, and it's you, and you've just got to maintain your focus and not the hardest part of the job is not allowing yourself to drift away and start thinking about other things, because you're doing the same thing, same route every day. Mm-hmm. It's the same, you're seeing it's the same scenery, tracks the same, stations are the same, a lot of the time, if you're on jobs consecutive days, the people who are getting on the train are the same that you're doing on the platform. It is that thing of the hardest part about it. It's not. It is maintaining that focus, because it is samey every day. It's it's a bit of a treadmill, and you're just doing the same thing every day. So you've just got to try and think of other ways of keeping your mind sharp and occupied, type of thing.
So would you say you kind of wish you were introduced to it earlier, or would you say like you're glad that it came at that specific time for you?
Yeah, I think definitely, if it was something that if it had got into the railway when I was younger, I might have struggled with it because of the type of person I was, and I did like going out on the weekend. I did like seeing my mates. I did, all the stuff that you like to do when you're young, and it would have had a big impact on that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
But it did come along at the right time for me. Definitely, as I say, I was really fortunate. I count myself really lucky to have stumbled into it, if you like. But I would have liked it maybe to have happened 10 years earlier rather than 20 years earlier. 10 years earlier definitely would have saved me a lot of stress and stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't want to put anyone out. It depends very much what you're like as an individual. And like you say, you can go down different routes. So I know I'm saying about shift work and weekend work and stuff like that, but there is the opportunity if you're the admin side of it, or at our head office and stuff like that in Railhouse, they work Monday to Friday. So it's not every role is different, if you like. So I'm just speaking about my own experience of what I've experienced on the railway, but there is other roles where it's not as intensely on lates and weekends and stuff like that. But definitely it came along at the right time for me. But I wouldn't want to say just because someone's young, it's not the right time for them. It definitely depends on them as an individual and how driven they are and what they want to get out of it. The other thing that I would say as well is, for the job that I've got, and it's a professional job, and it's a well paid job, and it's that thing of to say to people, doesn't matter what you've done previously as well. I don't think with the railway, it's not one of these jobs where you have to have a degree or you have to, you have to have these qualifications behind you before you can do it. It is an industry where you can get your foot in the door at whatever level you can, however low or high up you can get in. And you can definitely progress regardless of where you've been or what you've done in the past. Because there's me and there's loads of others who've got not similar stories to me, but they've come into it and they haven't had maybe a lot behind them qualification wise and stuff like that, but they've still managed to get to a really high level within the company. Yeah,
definitely. So in terms of obviously, because I don't necessarily think train driving is necessarily promoted in schools and stuff as like you hear about it and things, but I would never know how to get into it personally. So would you say there's a particular a good way for young people to kind of access it?
Yeah, well, it's difficult really, to be honest. I mean, like you say, I went down the route. I was fortunate, and like yourself, I'd never even thought about it. I'd never give it a second thought about driving the train. I'm not one of these kids who, when I was a little boy, I was obsessed with trains or anything. It like you say, I kind of stumbled into it, and I think there's the potential in this city because of the way Merseyrail works as a company, in as much as once you get your foot in the door, it opens up the avenue. Because as I say, they recruit their drivers from the guards grade within the company. So once you become a guard with Merseyrail, it's seen as your next logical step, if you like, to then hopefully become a driver if you pass the test and stuff like that. But I know if someone is genuinely interested in, they're thinking now, I would like to be a train driver. That's something I'd like to do, and it sounds like a job my personality and skill set and how I work, I'd fit in with that. The best advice I give them is have a look what's out there. Train operating companies, they'll all have websites, but even if you look on the internet for stuff like, I don't know how to say it, getting into train driving, I know that there is websites that, you know, people who were going through the recruitment process were looking at practice stuff, you know, practicing doing the OPCs, the test stuff and stuff like that. You can do that online, or you can actually pay for stuff, you know, for like books and software packages to hone your skills, if you like. Because it's about reactionary stuff and concentration, and there's different types of tests that they do. So you can access that type of stuff for free, or you can pay for it off the internet. And then the best advice I can give is, as many train operating companies that it's logical for someone to potentially apply for, you know, given by what area you live in. Are you prepared to travel certain distances, or would you in fact move to another part of the country to pursue that career? Access all the different train companies and see how they recruit and what they're asking for, and how regularly they do it. Now, I know that there is ones local to us, so Northern Rail, they still recruit from within their company, but I don't think it's just exclusively guards. I think it's anyone who works for the company. So you could be any role within that company and go for it, but they also recruit externally as well. So I think I was quite fortunate in Merseyrail that once I'd got in the door and I was in the guards role, my competition's smaller then, if you like, in as much as it's only the guards at Merseyrail you compete against. Other train operating companies, obviously, they've got people from within the company, but also if they're taking people externally as well, the competition becomes bigger. So the best advice I can give is have a look what's out there, and you know, don't be scared as well. The other thing is as well, don't be scared to contact these companies and make yourself known to them. You know, that's what you want to do, because if they know that it's a career path that you really want to do and you really want to follow, and you think you've got, you know, if you can promote yourself to them and not be a pain, but, you know, let them know that's what you want to do. That's the career you've got chosen for yourself, if you can achieve it. And then you'll be at the forefront of their thinking, I think, when they're doing the recruitment, is the best way I could say.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. You've answered that brilliantly. Unless you've got anything else to say, I think we can wrap up.
No, yeah, like you say, the message that I'd like to give to anyone, the advice I'd like to give to anyone, and this isn't just about my role in train driving, all the rest of it, is don't think that what you've done previously dictates where you're going to end up. You know, I'm living proof, basically, that I'd got to a point where it was like, I don't know where am I going to end up here? What am I going to do? I'm going to be stuck in dead-end jobs the rest of my life, maybe. And then an opportunity presented itself, and you know, it's never too late really for them opportunities to come up, regardless of where you've come from, your background, all that type of stuff, challenges you may have faced. Don't lose faith that something will eventually go your way, type of thing.